Okay, we have the two of you guys in the same chapter here because you both need to be working on the same adjustment. Although it looks a little different at the end, the same thing is wanting to be worked on for both of you guys. We'll let you watch this a second time. And then we will revisit our note here, which talks about getting our front leg rotated forward. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch this video another time, and we're going to pause it when your guys' front foot, bam, get into the ground. Let me back up a little bit more. We can see how as our front foot is getting into the ground, our leg, which we can say right now our knees are kind of facing one another and our feet are facing one another. Both of our throws, however, are going towards us, the camera, towards the target, the catcher. So we need to see that this front leg that's facing our teammate right now, as it goes and lands in the ground in front of us, that knee and that foot be more facing our target. And what we'll notice as our foot gets into the ground, as our foot is getting into the ground, we can see both of us, our inside part of our big toe is hitting the ground first. And then we can see how the rest of the inside part of our foot will then get into the ground, and then the rest of the foot will roll over into the ground. It will land on the big toe, inside part of the foot, and then it will roll over the rest of the way. And what we'll notice is as now that foot gets all the way into the ground, this knee is still very much angled inwards. And that's a big contributor to why our front shoulders are open right now. Your shoulders are not opening up early. Your upper half is not opening or peeling out because of your glove going and swooping outside of you, because both of you guys have very good glove discipline and finish your gloves in a good, proper, strong position. But because we are not rotating our legs forward, because we're not rotating our front foot and front knee towards the target, our front shoulder are going to have to rip and pull a bit out to the side in hopes to get that knee to rotate more. And we can see your knee wants to rotate so much that it kind of even, it's a little spin, a little squish the bug going on right there in this particular pitch. In Bellomos, we would say we're kind of more opening up our stride versus rotating our leg forward. We're more trying to open up the front leg to help the backside have the space to come forward. But when that stride starts to open up, that can take the front shoulder as well open. And now we're opened early with the upper half, and the lower half hasn't quite rotated everything. We can just look at the knee and the front leg and how much that is having to rotate post getting into the ground. after getting into the ground. We want that to be more in some type of lane in here, that front leg, more taking us to the target. Over here, we got a pretty big cross the body stride, which nothing wrong with. And maybe it's not as drastic as this angle makes it seem, but it does very much look like the lower half is coming this way when your target is very much down this alley. You're coming this way. So we then see with that comes, like we said, mentioned the side of the foot hitting first and that knee not having been rotated yet, which makes everything from the backside struggle to be able to come forward and throw before that has to get out of its way to be able to come all the way through to make that throw. And that's why we kind of have that little extra spin on that front leg after that throw. So both of us are going to benefit from learning how to rotate our front legs forward, thinking we got lasers shining off of our kneecaps and our toes, and our lefties lasers are going to first and the righties lasers are going to third. And when we get that foot in the ground, we want those lasers, to the best of our ability, going to the target. If you look at a big leaguer who does that well, you can look at Zach Wheeler, and as his front foot is getting into the ground here, we can probably already notice how those lasers that's shining off of his knee and off of his foot that are going to third base are going to be going to the target and to the target when that foot gets into the ground. And this helps now him be able to rotate all that power that he's stored up and created out in front and down through his release. So we take that back for you to see again, and just noticing how that front leg is rotating as it's in the air before it gets into the ground. So we got this. So there's you guys. Bam. 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 So, want to have a good drill to use. Just need to go onto the YouTube page using our resources and going to the mechanical drills playlist and going down until we see the drill that mentions front leg rotation. And this drill right here, whether you're using a band or not, we can work on learning how to get that front leg to rotate forward. Having a band to pull against with the leg will just make it more difficult. All right, we got your video that you'll be able to watch here 2 times. And then we will revisit that note and help you better understand that with a big league video or 2. So I know Coach said that you don't do a whole lot of pitching, but one thing we want to think about is when we are pitching or any type of time we're making an aggressive throw, we're doing that to rotate to make that throw. So that means we want to do some rotation to finish that throw. Just like when we hit, we rotate to make contact with that ball, and we continue some of that rotation to finish that swing. We don't want to just stop right here at contact with that swing. So if we watch our throw here, and we'll kind of pause it around here, right? Right here when this foot gets down, we're going to start coming and bringing this body around to throw, and also out in front or forward to throw. Bam. All right, so there's all that good rotation that our upper body's doing. And then our shoulders, we can say, are, if when they started they were facing the target, that was a bad arrow, they were facing the target. Right now they're side to side. So they went from this way, and now they're rotated to this way. That means they rotated 90 degrees. So if we rotate super fast 90 degrees, we're probably going to need to rotate a little bit more after that to slow all that down. And the same thing with our hips. Our hips started this way. Right? Our hips are sideways, just like our shoulders are sideways. And then when we get to this release point, our hips are now here. So that means they also rotated 90 degrees forward. So they're probably going to want to have to continue to rotate to slow down. But what we're going to notice is kind of nothing. That arm just kind of whips across your chest. Right? There goes that ball. The arm just kind of whips across that chest and then bounces back off that chest. But the chest itself doesn't really rotate anymore after the ball comes out of the hand. What we can also notice is that our hips aren't really rotating anymore after the ball comes out of our hand. If we think about when we wear our baseball pants, we got a baseball belt on, and that belt buckle right now is facing the target. When it first started, it was facing third base dugout. Then it gets all the way to the target, but now it just kind of stays facing to the target. What we'd like to see is just allow these shoulders to rotate around a little bit more. Let the hips rotate around a little bit more. If we think about a laser being shined from the center of your chest and out the center of your belt buckle, those lasers, like we said, start facing third base dugout. When we go to throw, they're both facing home plate or our catcher. So that's 90 degrees that they rotated. Let's let them keep rotating like another, even if it's just another 10 or 15 degrees. If it's 20 degrees. So that way the lasers don't just keep shining at the catcher when we're all done with our throw. But those lasers are going more towards like the on-deck circle over here. That's going to give your arm a little bit more time to slow down, which is going to keep your arm healthier. If we look for an example of that, we can go to the front view, or I'm sorry, the side view, and let's use a guy that you would know the name of. Trying to find someone. Paul Skeens. You probably know who that is, huh? All right, so right now we can see his number and his name, which means we're on the first base dugout. When he goes to throw, his chest and his belt buckle are to the target. Boom, and then now look. Now we can see his belt buckle, and we can see his chest. We couldn't tell. Obviously, we know who he plays for, but we didn't know it said Pittsburgh on his jersey this entire time. And he finishes the pitch. Let's get another guy up there for you. Jack Flaherty. You probably heard that name when he played for the Tigers a couple years ago. Right? We didn't know if obviously we know the Dodgers have their last names on the jersey, but we didn't know his name was there. But now we do, because everything was able to finish a little bit more. We don't need you to finish as much as these guys are. All right? Hunter Brown. I'm sure you don't know who that is, but he went to Wayne State. That's just in our backyard. And we'll be able to see his number at the end of this throw because his chest and his hips keep finishing a little bit more. So a good drill for you to be able to work on this would be rotating through release and finishing my pitch. This will help you understand how to let that chest and those hips continue to rotate around some more. So that way you don't just have your chest facing the target and your hips facing the target at the end of your throw, but they go through it just a little bit more, through it just a little bit more, helping your arm stay healthy because it gets a little bit more time to decelerate after release. Okay, Mr. Galas, we got your video that you'll be able to watch here 2 times. And then we will revisit the note at the beginning of your chapter. All right, and you do a lot of things really good in the beginning of your delivery, but what we're going to notice is that your upper body begins to rotate before your front foot gets all the way down to the ground, and that kind of throws off your rhythm and timing the rest of the way. That's why we kind of have these more awkward finishes where your body's kind of falling back this way, right? We're rotating this way with our upper and our lower bodies to throw the baseball this way, but yet somehow all of your energy wants to fall back that way at the end, that way at the end, that way at the end. Instead of being able to continue that rotation around that front leg this way, your body falls back out that way. So if we notice when this front foot is coming to get into the ground, how the upper body, specifically the backside, is going to begin to rotate forward as this front foot and this front leg is getting itself all the way into the ground. All the way into the ground. And what we want to be able to have is when this front foot gets all the way into the ground, our shoulders are still nice and squared up or sideways to our target. And that way our arm can still be loaded up in this good, strong position that you are trying to get to right now. What we can note is that the arm is a little low when we're trying to load it up. As we're trying to load that hand up, the elbow is getting a little low. Now, is it a little low because it's having to rotate early? And again, it's having to come through early. Early is in relation or compared to when that front foot gets into the ground all the way. You can see our upper body is starting to rotate to make that throw before that front foot gets all the way into that ground. So we would like to be able to work on getting this front foot in the ground first before this upper body starts to rotate around a throw. We would probably also like to work on trying to get this elbow up a little bit higher, so that way it's shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to hand, versus shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to hand. And we want that, looking for that 90-ish degree in that elbow bend. You have that here, but that elbow going down, you now have kind of like 70-degree angle in your armpit, versus if we were shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to hand, and then here was the side of our body, we would have that 90-degree in that armpit as well. So we'll get a big league video up here real quick for you. And let's just use somebody that's going to be able to easily see what we're looking at. Corbin Burns would be a good example. And we'll notice that his upper body, or this Milwaukee, is going to stay sideways until after this front foot hits the ground. All right, there's that front foot hitting the ground, and that Milwaukee is still sideways. This throwing arm hasn't started to come forward at all yet. The front foot is now in the ground, and now we'll see the elbow and the arm going forward as the chest rotates forward. So thinking about getting that foot in the ground and then shoulders rotate to throw. We can also see there's that shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to hand, and then going down the side of the body, there's our 90-ish degree angle in the elbow bend and the 90-ish degree angle in the armpit. This is the good, healthy, strong position we want to throw from. And if we just kind of move that there, and you over here, we can see as your front foot is getting itself into the ground, we can start to see those shoulders start to rotate forward. And by the time that front foot is all the way in the ground, we can see we're almost all the way rotated around. We can also see when that front foot does first get into the ground, before it's all the way in the ground, and it's just that big toe touches right down here, right there, right there. And we draw those lines from shoulder to shoulder to elbow to hand, and shoulder to shoulder to elbow to hand, like I was saying, with more on the same line here versus that elbow getting underneath that line, dropping the arm low, forcing then the elbow to really have to come up. Really forcing the elbow to have to come up a little bit while we're trying to make this throw, versus everything just getting to go straight forward with the throw some more. Because your elbow is not super low beneath your shoulder, it doesn't have to go super high to get back on plane. And that's why it's not the biggest thing that I think we need to work on, but it is definitely something that you will eventually want to be working on to keep your arm safe and healthy. Also being able to rotate this front leg a little bit better, so that way we're not hitting the inside part of our foot and we're landing more flat-footed. That's going to help things as well. So going onto the YouTube page under the mechanical drills playlist and doing some drills such as front leg rotation, that's going to help us learn how to get that front foot into the ground nice and flat and firm. And then if we wanted to work on getting that arm loaded up to a better position, we could do something like the slide pad movement drills, where we're just practicing moving our hands through the path that we want to take them to, getting the arm into a nice loaded strong position. All right, Mr. Miller, you got your video that you'll be able to watch here 2 times, and then we will revisit the note that was provided for you, and then we will get a couple videos for you to compare that to help you really see what we're trying to get your body to want to do for you. So that note that we had is trying to think about throwing your chest down when you throw, or another way to think about that is get out in front at release. I personally like to think about throwing my chest down. That always worked for me. So what we're going to do is when this front foot gets bam into the ground, the upper body is in a good strong position to throw. The arm is nice and loaded properly and healthy and strong. Eyes are on the target. Shoulders nice and closed still, hasn't begun to rotate. We may not have to, but we may look to try to lengthen this stride out a little bit, just because we kind of look at this shin angle and it's almost going forward. So just maybe a little bit more of a reach with the heel, maybe more in here and the foot out here. Maybe. And that's not a for sure thing, but maybe you guys look to do something like that. But if we draw a line, excuse me, we draw a line through the center of your chest here, and we continue you, and it's tough because the camera's kind of moving on us. But we can kind of note when you get to release here, the ball's out of your hands there. So we say release is there. And if we draw another line up through your body, we can see that's kind of all the amount that you were able to drive your chest down. And then ultimately, the more our chest gets down, the more out in front we've gotten with our hand at the moment of release. And if we pull up some big leaguers here for you, oops, I just had it right there. If we pull up some big leaguers here for you, hopefully we got some names that you'll know. Flaherty. We can go Corbin Burns. He's been around for a while. Jacob deGrom. Hopefully you know him. Josh Hader. You probably know him. And let's go with Ben Joyce. So Corbin Burns here first. We'll do the same thing. We'll pause him when he gets to that moment, that front foot, bam, gets into the ground. He's also in that same good, strong, loaded position with his arm to throw from. We draw that. Oops, that's not the straightest line. Let me draw something better than that. That line there, and then we take him out to the moment of release, and there goes that ball. We can kind of see it over here coming out. So we'll just draw a line up through him there, and that's the amount that he's able to drive his chest down to help him get out in front at release. We drop Corbin Burns down, pull up deGrom. We can do the same thing. Pause when that front foot gets in the ground. We can just move him back so we can use that same line. And there's that ball at release, and he's pretty much on that same line that we just had with, who was that? I already forgot. Corbin Burns. All right, so we can take deGrom down, pull up Ben Joyce. We'll do the same thing for him. Pause at the moment that foot gets in the ground. Pull him back so that line fits him. And then we can do the same thing Take him in a moment of release. And those lines are going through the same part of him as the other two were, right there. Josh Hader obviously is left-handed. Then we use our other righty first before we get to him. From the stretch, from the windup does not make a difference. So once that front foot gets in the ground, let me go back a couple frames. Once that front foot gets in the ground, that chest is nice and tall. So that way we can get out in front at release. We can see that same thing with that chest going down to get out in front. We do that same thing with Hader. He'll get a fresh side of that line when that front foot gets in the ground. There he is. And then we take him to the moment of release. Right there. And draw that up. And that's pretty much the same as we saw with those guys almost. So we come back to you then after getting to see how much those guys are getting their chest out in front and down. You can kind of watch how you're just more kind of tall with that. Because everything else that you do in your delivery, like I said here, it's really good. We just need to learn how to send all this really good power down some more and out some more. So we're going to want to use our mechanical drills playlist on the YouTube page. And we're going to want to go down until we get to a video number 19 over here. It says trunk tilt into release. This is going to be a good video to help you learn how to get that chest out in front and down when we throw. And then rotating through release is another video that we can use to help get our chest, so we can see in the thumbnail here, out in front more when we're throwing. Both of those are good non-throwing drills to help you learn how to work that mechanical adjustment of yours. Okay, we got your video that you'll be able to watch 2 times here. And then we will get a big league video or 2 up there for you. Let's mute that so we don't have to listen to all that. And then we will make one note for Coach to take a look at and work with you on. But all in all, you got a very good delivery here. We got a nice aggressive leg lift. That's on a nice slight angle back. Our body does a good job of wanting to get going to our target. Our hand separation is good and clean. Front side leg is staying closed as we're gaining ground towards the target. Our upper body is getting into a good position to be able to load this arm up on time while maintaining this glove in a good finish position as we get closer and closer to that moment of time. We can see the backside is firing and getting rotated towards the target on time meaning when that front foot gets into the ground. We can see when that front foot is getting into the ground, this glove has gotten into a good finished position with that chin looking over that shoulder right at that target. The one thing to note is this arm is a little low. We go shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to hand, and we can just kind of see we get a little bit of a low elbow here, which is going to cause that a little bit of that upward hike to get that elbow on plane with the rest of the shoulders before we can get ourselves out in front. But the chest is doing a very good job of getting things out in front. So we just want to make sure that this elbow does not have to go up before it's able to go out, so that way we can reduce the stress on the front of the arm. So just being able to learn how to go from here, where we do have that elbow and shoulder in that same alignment, and just learning how to get this hand to flip up the rest of the way versus the hand flipping up as the elbow drops down. Right? So you can see how that elbow is dropping down as much as that hand is going up, versus that elbow being able to stay on this plane here and just stay in this alley as the hand comes up. You can see that that elbow is dropping down to help get that hand up. And now that elbow is going to have to come back up to now be able to throw things out in front. So everything that you do in your delivery is super, super good. I would just have a little attention be paid to here and just learn how to get that arm to load up. If we get some big league videos here for you from the side, and we'll get some guys that you'll know the name of, hopefully. Obviously Paul Skeens, but none of those are good angles to be able to see what we're looking for on this. This one maybe. We got Ben Joyce we can use. The Josh Hader's a tough angle to see that as. Pablo Lopez, that'll work. And let's get a, John Gurley. I probably not Jordan Hicks though, because he throws hard. All right, Ben Joyce. We'll pause him when his front foot hits the ground. We'll see what position his arm is at for its loaded and ready to throw spot. And we can see shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to hand. His elbow is a little bit higher than his shoulder, but it's not lower than. We clean that up. We drop him out. Again, it's not the best angle to see this, but we're still going to be able to see as that front foot gets into the ground, shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow. That's on that same plane there. So that way when he throws, the elbow does not have to come up and then be able to go forward. I guess it'd just go forward. Jordan Hicks, obviously he's not with the Cardinals anymore, but when that front foot does get into the ground, we can see he is shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to hand. If we drop this down by his side, we can see there's a 90-ish degree angle in his armpit and that 90-ish degree angle in his elbow. We just kind of go back to you real quick, and we can just see how that elbow's down here with that shoulder up here versus the shoulder up here and the elbow right there with it. So we get rid of Hicks, Pablo Lopez. And we'll do the same thing, pausing at the moment his foot gets on the ground at foot strike. And we can go from his shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to hand. And we drop that down his side, and we got that 90-ish degree angle and the 90-ish degree angle. The elbow is in line with the shoulders versus your shoulders being here and your elbow being down here. Your elbow is more in line with your chest. Oops, that's a terrible line. Your elbow is more in line with your chest than it is with your shoulders. So what we can be doing to work on just getting this arm up higher at home, bud, is just getting in front of the mirror in your bathroom, putting your back up against the wall, so that way you can see from your shoulder to shoulder nice and straight, and then get your throwing arm up there, up against the wall as well. So now it's shoulder to elbow, nice and straight. And then we can let that hand kind of relax down, making sure it's still shoulder to elbow, nice and straight. Then we can just learn how it feels to have that hand load up to there until the back of the hand touches the wall. Boom. So your arm's in this loaded position versus being in this position. Because right now, instead of being from this good position where you're at right here, and instead of getting that arm to load up, getting that arm to load up, getting that arm to load up. We are instead getting that arm to load up to here, right? You went from here to here, just like I was, here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here. But then we got to learn, once it's here, hand only, hand only, hand only, versus you going elbow down, hand up, elbow down, hand up. So really just having you up against that wall like this with that elbow there, and just learning how to raise that hand above the elbow without the elbow needing to go down to help to get the hand above the elbow. Simple drill, just need to do it 1,000 times and 1,000 times and 1,000 times again before the season starts.